Roman?
What's up?
Shouldn't we be driving Stepney right now?
I thought right now was podcast time.
Oh yeah! Hello everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Track Stars. I am Jaden, aka the Windmill Bert.
I am Roman, aka Mr. Tugboat.
The one and only. And today, we are here to talk
So.
about Arry and Bert, of all characters. Um,
If you can tell by that statement, we're not exactly confident in what we have to say.
if it doesn't work out, we'll...
Like the whole thing.
Yeah.
We'll do
if
some
it
other
doesn't work out, then you
thing.
guys won't hear this video. That yeah. Um
This is some 4D stuff thinking we're doing right now, and I'm kind of hurting.
mhm. Um
Mhm. Yes,
mhm.
indeed. Mhm.
Indeed. So, Ellie and Bert. They
Harry and
are,
Bert, yes.
well, the two twin diesels for one. Oh eights to be
That's, def-
exact.
that's
Uh
definitely true.
and they work
They're
at the
kind of neat.
smelters. It's almost like, I don't remember what it's called exactly, but it's almost like they're the kind of character where they only come into the story when a character goes to the location that they're based at, you know?
Is there a term for that?
I feel like there is. Somebody in the comment section will
Probably.
tell us, maybe,
Or
possibly.
nobody will comment on this video,
That's
and we'll just
also
be left
that's
wondering.
also very possible. We'll find out.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
yes, indeed. But regardless,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like Ellie and Bert have two different modes, you know? They have
We have the season 5 Demons of Hell, and then
that everybody's
uh,
always like raving about and like saying that's how they should have been. They should have stayed those terrifying figures who were gonna kill Stepney.
yeah,
Um,
constantly. It's their only life's goal.
and
And then we
then
have like the season 6 and 7 schoolyard bullies.
yeah, like Middle Engines is a good example. Just uh, like they go around like just taunting
Bumping
engines instead of,
jokes, being
killing
mildly
them.
rude.
Yeah, it's a big change, and I feel like the season 6 version fits a lot better in, a kids show. But obviously fans who prefer the more, dark edge or whatever,
Spooky stories.
like the version we see in Stephanie Gets Lost far more, which makes sense.
The season 5 versions are far more entertaining.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's almost like season 6 onward, they sort of just become Diesel's
Splatter and
sidekicks in a
Dodge.
way, and like just sort of dumb jocks, sort of.
Yeah. They sort of just become I don't this doesn't happen until way later, but they sort of don't become like they sort of become like Diesel's cronies.
Right,
Like just like other O8s who follow him around and are also mean. They're kinda like
right.
that, but not as following them around.
It's like the Crab and
Um
Gold
it-
of Diesel's Draco sort of thing.
yeah, they're almost like Splatter and Dodge. Uh-huh.
Speaking
Uh-huh.
of which, um, so
Uh.
obviously the behind the scenes side of things, Splat and Dodge were literally just repaints of Arry and Bert, and then the other way around goes as well. And that,
It's kind of funny to think about that because like
yeah, it reflects
it's
the
almost like the mode
characterizations pretty
which is
well.
like it's almost like the characterizations are like the mode switch. Like,
Yeah, it's like the moment that Splatter and Dodge came around. It's like Arry and Bert were the like menacing bad guys, and then they turned into Splatter and Dodge, became like funny sort of comic relief goons, and then suddenly in season
Never,
6, after they come back, they're almost like a hybrid between those two ideas.
yeah,
Like they're somewhere in
it's kind of what
between.
um something I think we do have to mention when we're talking about like the mode shifting between the two. Um, is Fergus breaks the rules.
Oh yeah.
Like, are you happy to be here? That whole
Yeah.
thing. I think that was almost not a return to form because I don't think they really had a form in season 5, but like
Yeah, I mean
that
it's
shift.
it's far from as black and white as we make it out to be. That's fair. But
Yep.
at least season 6 is almost like a sign of what's to come in season 8 onwards. Or at least the hitter, where like Thomas and the Stinky Cheese is a good example, where they're just bullies. They're just generic schoolyard bullies. And yeah, and when they're almost like cronies to, Diesel, it reflects Splatter and Dodge pretty well because, they
If
were
you swap them
they
for
were made
Splatter
to
and
be,
Dodge, it wouldn't change
yeah,
anything.
they were made to be the cronies, the goons to Diesel 10. So it works out pretty well, I suppose. And I mean, on that note, it's interesting to look at how many 08s there are on the show, and it sort of makes you consider the side of things where it's like, do Arry and Bert being the menacing, imposing figures that they are, does that almost represent, in a way, the dieselization of it all, when steam engines are getting replaced by diesel engines, so it's almost like a personification of this
Era.
fear, yeah, this era, or is it more of a thing
Just
where,
intimidation for the scrapyard to build up like
yeah,
intensity.
is it, does the intimidation come from the fear of
Them being
scrap or the
fools and
fear of diesels? That's almost the question there. And I mean, both sort of, both play a factor, of course. But
yeah. I
it's
think
interesting that the scrap engines would also be the diesel engines, the O eights to be exact, the mass produced cookie
the most
cutter,
numerous
yeah,
diesel ever,
the armies, the swarms of them just all across Britain.
right? You lose one, it doesn't matter because there's 995 more of them somewhere.
So then that almost begs the question, do they represent a concept more, or are they still characters in their own right? Do they have a personality there? Do they have something of substance, or are they just there to spark fear and show this side of things?
I think I think it really comes down to when we're talking about them. Because I think if we put them on a timeline, if we put all the episodes on the timeline, let's say season
Yeah,
5 is like late 60s or so, I think then it's a lot. Well, no, actually, because late 60s stuff is starting to settle down, and even the 08s, who were numerous in numbers, weren't like the big takers, you know? The big
yeah.
takers were ones like Class 40, Bear, D199. Um, so them, I think they were more supposed to be. I don't. That's hard to say. I don't want to say they were background engines because as much as the show loved wasting money, City of Churro, I don't think they would have made straight up background engines explicitly for one appearance. So I
I
almost want
mean,
to say they were
Bertram
pure.
exists.
Sorry.
Bertram exists in the same season, but okay.
Well, Bertram was a reused character. He was reused from
That's
Duke.
fair.
So, but Arry and Bert, they didn't exist prior. I mean, I could have easily seen Brett being like, "Yeah, okay, we kind of need Diesel characters for the next movie. Oh, you guys need intimidating villains? Oh, just make 08s and we'll just repaint those later." I could see her easily telling David to do that, but getting rid of behind the scenes nonsense. I think they were more so intended to be like just intimidation for the scrapyard. Because if we look in like the other episodes of season five, um, the scrapyard is not that intimidating at all. Which is like,
Yeah, like,
oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Like we see it, we see a whole different set in Old Slow Coach.
and
Um,
when
it's
when Percy gets, put upon, he just casually gets some scrap from the scrap yards.
yeah, it's like it's treated almost like more like a friendly, just like a junkyard, versus this
Right.
place that is supposed to be like hell. Which
The like
oh,
the
think of
execution shed or whatever,
right.
the electric shed
Think of this. Think of this. Right. So, what do we know about Stephanie? What's Stephanie's big thing?
that he would save some scrap.
Exactly. So, if we see the scrapyard in every other episode in season five, and it's not like a huge, scary deal
It's not,
whatsoever,
yeah,
like
big. It's not a
Thomas and
big
Percy
deal.
have no issue going onto it. I wonder if Stephanie was almost like having like a panic attack and just dreamt up Arry and Bert.
That's
Because think about it, he's been working all day.
huh.
It's late at night, and he ends up in the scrapyard, the one place that he practically, I would assume, vowed never would go back to. Like he would
And
actively avoid at every cost.
and they do say got you this time, Stepney, implying that they
This
were the same
time,
diesels who were trying
right,
to capture him, trying to put him
or at least would have
to
known of
rest
Stephanie
forever.
beforehand. Yeah. So I wonder if Stephanie was just like having a panic attack and just sort of hallucinated these demonizing diesels, two of them, numerous diesels versus the dwindling numbers of the terriers.
I'd never considered that before.
Me
That's a
neither, but
very
like,
interesting way to look at it.
I mean, it doesn't work with anything else because we see them interact with other characters but Stephanie. But I could maybe Arry and Bert are just scrapyard
Or at
chunters
least
that
they could have
in
started out that
canon
way.
were pardon?
Or at least they could have started out the way that you're describing,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
got
maybe they were just like
recontextualized.
in yeah. Maybe just like in lore, they were just diesel scrapyard chunters, like maybe just like existed, but weren't like planned to have stories or anything about them. But then, you know, Stephanie gets lost, happens, and then Arry and Bert suddenly get stories. I don't know how that would fit with anything, but I like the idea of Arry and Bert just being like these normal things and Stephanie having like a huge panic attack and just dreaming up Arry and Bert. Or dreaming of
Yeah.
them being hellish demons.
And there's also the behind the scenes side of things, where it's like they try and make Stephanie gets lost. And they try and make it so that in Stephanie gets lost, Iron Bit provide more of a threat. Like they make the scrapyards seem more threatening to the viewer as
With Arry and Bert.
compared to other episodes of season five, where it's just a casual location that they go
Mhm.
to. So they add
A
Iron
friendly
Bert
old junkie.
as the personification of the fear, more or less.
That's probably all they were intended to be behind the scenes and all that. And
Right.
then I don't know about Never Seen Again because of how they treated everybody else. But then in season six, they lose all that and become. Maybe it's because they were only supposed to be that, and then Magic Railroad and all the this is too frightening for younger viewers stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then they were like, okay, maybe we should tone down Arry and Bert. That would explain
Yeah.
their massive censorship.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between season 5 and season 6 in terms of just general tone and atmosphere is just really,
That's black and white.
yeah, it's, yeah.
So Harry and Bert's characters, I suppose we should dive a little bit deeper into that. Because, like,
Yeah, I have a few bullet points about that if we care to get into that.
oh, someone came prepared. Okay,
Yeah,
I woke up like this.
so, let's see. So, okay,
Do-do-do-do.
obviously there's the whole side of things looking at them as like from the perspective of the steam engines looking at these two diesels. But then how do you think that they see the world around them? How do you think that they think of the steam engines? Do you think that they are just simply better? Oh wow, we should go scrap them. Or it's almost like,
I think Arry and Bert are like, they're like sheep. If diesels are the thing at the time, they're like, oh yeah, diesels are the good thing. We should get rid of steam engines because diesels are so much better. I think that's how they would like view steam locomotives.
right, but with all due respect, that's a very boring way of looking at it.
Oh yeah,
Of
definitely.
and
But
I feel like if we want to maybe dive a little bit deeper and consider other possibilities, that's probably the most likely. That's probably the most reasonable, right? But
that is
what if they
very interesting.
saw that it? So it was scrapping engines. I mean, we take it for granted that that's just like what they enjoy doing because that's the job that they were assigned. But what if they didn't enjoy the demise of those around them? What if they didn't enjoy scrapping steam engines? What if they just wanted to get along and have a good time and have friends, but everybody views them
Then
as these horrific villains trying to kill them when all they're trying to do is the job that they're assigned?
then respectfully, I think we'd be talking more about Splatter and Dodds than we are Arry and Bert. Because I don't think that Arry and Bert are like, I don't know if they're actively don't I don't think there's any sort of giving in the show that they don't like their jobs. I mean, there might be, and I might just be forgetting about it, but considering everything we see of them and how they behave with everybody, especially when like in calling all engines, they're like gun ho about not working with the steam engines, even like beforehand. Before the big fight, they're like, they're bumping into Thomas and Percy, making stuff harder for them. They're gung ho about causing trouble and all that. That's why I think when you said like dumb jocks earlier, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because who does it take to convince them to work with the steam engines? Like fully, it's Diesel 10, the biggest of jock diesels on the island at the time.
That's almost how I see Splatter and Dodge, more or less.
Huh.
It's like we have flipped viewpoints.
See, I think Sweater and Dodge wouldn't like destroying steam engines because they actively rebel against Diesel 10. Not very good. And they're just like, yeah, okay, no, we don't want to do this anymore at the end of the movie. But like, it's a lot more than we get out of Arry and Bert, who, while they don't show any signs of like um wanting to kill anybody in the average Hit Era episode, they aren't like friendly, and they aren't at all sort of you know good members of society. They
Right.
are both they're both dicks.
That's fair. I mean, so do you think that they would take active joy in the act of killing others?
Maybe
Like
not joy.
they're not sociopaths, they're not psychopaths.
No,
Surely
no,
there's
they
some
aren't
kind of
close,
humanity in them.
right? Because they do. So they are civil occasionally. Um, I don't know honestly, because I don't think they, as far as we've seen and I can remember, I don't think they would have ever gotten the chance to. Because think about where the Ironworks is at. It's on Sodor, the most preservation steam. If you're looking for steam railways in the 21st century, you go to the island of Sodor.
Well,
So I
hold
don't think Arry and
on.
Bert would have ever gotten the chance to scrap like a
If you've
living
ever
locomotive.
if you've ever looked at the scrapyards, there's
Okay.
so
Well,
many
hold
just
on a
carcasses of
second.
engines everywhere.
Well, hold
If
on
we
a
if we
second.
entertain the idea,
If we entertain the idea, then City of Truro would have been gone like immediately after his appearance in season three. That's one really weird to think about, but two, like I'm not convinced to take the scrap dressing on set like seriously, because there's like Gordon, and like 14 different Thomas models, which I don't know why there are that many Thomas models to made scrap of, because I'm
yeah.
pretty sure there's like two that don't look the same before the brass models, mind you. Um, so and they're like around like Tidmouth. They're at like Tidmouth Sheds. We see a Thomas outside of Tidmouth Sheds.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if I'm convinced by. I don't know if I'm going to take that seriously.
Just a
Because
warning
like,
real quick to everybody listening. There's a thunderstorm outside my house right now. If you
oh
hear
my god,
if you hear an
just so
explosion, then just
just know it
it's
was me.
most likely
I did
that.
that. I caused the thunders. I'm God.
We didn't start the fire. That's gonna get us copyrighted.
I
So,
started the fire.
so
I
it's almost
started it.
like, so the way you view it, Ellie and Bert are too kept in the dark about the world around them to even have a concept of what scrapping these other engines would even like be.
Well, I think that
You
on the
think they're
day to
that
day, they get
dumb?
old junk and pieces from broken engines, or cars, and trucks, or whatever, and they see it melted down, and we get a bunch of Journey Beyond Sodor style visuals of the smelted yard. They're like, "Oh yeah, look at that! That's so cool. I want to do that." I think that's what they think, and then they're like, "Okay, go get a steam engine, and we'll do it to them." And they're like, "Why?" And it's like a whole. I don't think. Yeah, it's. I don't think they've ever seen a steam loco get scrapped or understand that they're like destroying a life.
I've,
So
that's just so different to
weird
how
because
I
they're the
was
scrap
viewing
piece.
it.
Really,
Like you just think of them as just straight up just like
jocks,
dumb jocks,
sheep.
basically. The
Yeah,
yeah, the best way of describing it. Like I
you
was
think of the
picturing them as
mysterious
like
scraps.
full three-dimensional characters who like are forced to grapple with these acts that they
Well,
put
I
upon
would.
that they're forced to do, and
I would.
they just want to work on this railway and thrive, but everybody views them as these terrible villains, and they can do nothing about it. Like imagine if they just tried to go to some shed somewhere because they just needed a rest, and they're surrounded by steam engines, and it's like a scene in a cartoon where like somebody's on a bus and then the entire bus moves to the other side to try and avoid them or something.
See, I would like to think of them like that, but and the closest we see them to getting to scrap any locomotive, they are like excited about it, right? And then they don't. And then any of their behavior after that shows that like they they like want to do it again. And we know they're not sociopaths, or maybe they are and they're just harmless. Um
Harmless sociopath.
Harmless sociopaths, yes. Well, point being, I'm thinking that any of their behavior, I think if they would have actually scrapped a steam engine, destroyed a
Yeah.
life, you know, they would have watched it because, like I said, they're partially dumb. We've mildly agreed that they're partially dumb jocks, so they would watch the flames. They would hear the screaming and the pain because it would hurt, probably. Um, Assuming trains feel pain. So we hear them go, oh, and ooh, all the time. They
I
feel
mean, they
pain.
would at least be
Um,
screaming about the fact that they're about to die.
exactly. So I think Arry and Bert, because we've agreed they have some humanity
That's
to
so
them,
dark.
they would be a lot more sad about watching somebody be melted alive than they are like on the day to day. I think if they've seen that and that was like their job, your job is to be a murderer. You get to take somebody you get to take somebody, just some random person, and you get to melt their face off the blowtorch every day. Are you going to be happy on the day to day? No. And Aryan Burke, even if they are sociopaths, I think would still be act a little bit different, either crazier or more sadly mellow. But I don't think they would be the same. Oh, let's do it again. Let's get the steam engines kind of characters they're depicted as.
Wait, I just had an idea.
Another one. Ooh,
What if what if we merged our two ideas that we've been discussing, the whole dumb jock thing where they're just sheep, and the three-dimensional character idea where they're forced to kill steam engines? When they first arrived, they were just dumb jocks who had been indoctrinated into this system of believing that steam engines are meant to be destroyed. Ooh, we're so much better. Ooh. And then the day that dieselization like fully kicked in on Sodor, and a fully alive steam engine, was actually sent to be scrapped by them. They're like all on board because that's
what
how
they've
it
been told
is.
to do
But then,
years.
yeah, but then the steam engine starts talking to them and starts like begging to stay alive, something like that, and then it's almost traumatizing for them as they watch or listen to the steam engine just die horrifically. And so imagine that cycle repeating over and over, and then suddenly
Sad,
they
depressing
either
shit.
just enjoy it, and I guess they're sociopaths, or they try and break out of it, or they just are forced into it because they don't want to act out, they don't want to rebel against it,
They
and
don't want
so
to
they're
end up like
just
the steam engines.
yeah, and so they're just forced killing their peers over and over, and maybe even they volunteered for this job because they had been indoctrinated so much that they were like, yeah, that'll make us the best, that'll make
They'll
us the
make us the most
coolest.
useful diesels ever.
Yeah, exactly. And so then now they're stuck in this life of killing other engines. And actually, that brings me nicely to another topic that I wanted to discuss, where do you think that Arry and Bert have the exact same characterization? we've
We've
been
been saying
referring
them
to them
Arry and Bert,
like,
not Arry or Bert.
yeah, we've been referring to them as one single entity, but let's split them apart for a moment. What if when that first steam engine is, scrapped, one of them is just like, he goes with it and he is like, come on, Ari, or whatever, what's wrong? Why are you so upset? This is what we've been working for our entire lives. And, Ari is distraught. It's one of these characters continues going with the cycle, continues working underneath this pressure that's been built over them, that they've been working under their entire lives, while the other decides that they have to start working past that, and they feel horrible for these steam engines that they're killing.
Oh, well, I think it's important to identify like what the differences are before we put them in crisis state. Like,
That's
are there
fair.
differences on the regular between the two?
I mean,
No, there aren't.
yeah,
But
but okay,
I
with
could
my
see
with my rant, that was mostly, that was speculation. I'm not basing that off of.
anything. Yeah.
That's
I
that's
mean,
just
I could
my
definitely see it
perception.
happening. And had they ever gotten stories to themselves, I think we could probably interpret some more. But I don't know. We don't ever really get an idea of who the twins are. Like, as individuals. And even if we discuss them as one, we don't get much for them outside of like their work. It's almost like their work is the only the only thing to them. Sounds really awful in terms of character. Um, but that's huh. I like thinking about that.
So, at a glance, the most striking difference between them is that one has a beard, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't even know which one,
So
if I'm
one of
being
them clearly
honest.
has better style. Yeah.
And so the show has never bothered to try and to even make an attempt at differentiating them in any way. Which, I mean, compare that to, say, Donald and Douglas,
Who are
where,
almost strikingly different if you
yeah,
pay attention to Donald's stuff.
yeah, if you pay enough attention to the small details, then it's pretty apparent who's who. Whereas if
Right.
you take Arry and Bert, they are just one entity. I've never heard somebody talk about, hey, Arry is my favorite character, or I really love Bert. No, it's Arry and Bert.
Arry and
That's
Bert.
their name.
Not that anybody has those as their favorite.
Arry A. Bert. Like,
Arry A. Bert.
they've never
Um,
been given the dignity of two characters.
Even Bill and Ben, if you watch episodes like Buff or Bother, like when they argue, you can clearly tell the difference between the two.
Yeah.
It's slightly even more subtle than Donald and Douglas, but it is still there and apparent. Versus, yeah, Arry and Bert, it's literally just the two of them as one, technically.
I mean, in a way, it's almost like a Steamies versus Diesels thing, where because these are the villainous characters, why should they be ever given that chance to
Right.
show who they are?
We don't get many episodes with like diesels on their own, period. We don't get any episodes who
Oh, for sure.
without Diesel as a like. I think Diesel of any of the Diesels gets the most lead roles, and that's probably why we know and like talk the most about him. But any other Diesel, like they'll get maybe two, episodes on their own, and then that's really about it.
Yeah. I
Which
mean,
really
even
kind of
that's a
sucks.
stretch.
Yeah,
I mean, at least in the model series, the most we ever get is that episode with Diesel and Emily.
right. And even Paxton, who I'd say is like second in most developed Diesels,
Oh, for
only
sure.
gets a side appearance to a Diesel episode.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a main character. And Arry and Bert, who I think are more interesting Diesels, um, than like Paxton or Sydney. Just purely, well, not only because of the fact that they're twins, but they also work at the scrapyard. Like, there's more. I think there's more interesting stuff you can do with those two than Paxton or Sydney. And it's a real
Right.
shame they haven't gotten more stories because it leaves practically nothing to differentiate the two.
But then on the other hand, there's characters like Mavis and Salty who almost by default seem to get that sort of treatment just because they are treated as friends of the Steamies rather than villains.
Right. Even engines like Daisy, who I'd say is almost like an anti hero in the Steamies versus Diesels debate or debacle. Because,
Something like that. Somewhere in between.
I don't think she thinks Diesel is. I don't think she and Diesel are on the same level, or in her
I mean,
mind.
yeah, for sure.
But I also don't think she thinks. I just. I don't think she finds herself equivalent to everybody. She's just above everyone.
Yeah.
So
She's
she's
just on
almost
her
like an
own tier.
anti-hero. Yeah, she's just. It goes BAS Daisy in her mind. That's exactly how it works. Um,
In
so
her mind, it's Railcar, Diesels, and Steamies.
I
She's
almost,
in her
I
own
don't.
category.
She just gets her own tier above everybody else, and yeah.
But this is aside from the
Circling back
point.
to
This is a
Arry and
video
Bert,
about Arry and
however,
Bert.
yeah. The reason we're getting so off topic is because without stuff to differentiate the two, it's hard to cause internal conflict. Um, what do you think would like shake Arry and Bert? What do you think would provoke character development? Because think about it, they are the scrap diesels. They are the deciders if we would get to live or die. At least in the good interpretation, I
Well,
guess.
obviously there's that
Like,
whole rant that I had earlier about, the first time that they'd ever actually be forced to scrap a steam engine that might cause some sort of, you know,
right,
something. And I imagine maybe one is older than the other and is, the older one's more. Let's say Bert is the older one. Aries the older one. Bert's the younger one, right? And so Aries is just calmer and more, tired, laid
right,
back, etc. Whereas Bert's
right,
more we gotta go get those steamies,
right,
And so I imagine that Bert would be the one who would suddenly have that change, just because he would be the more dramatic to,
right.
of the two, I
Versus Ari,
suppose.
who's probably. I just had a thought.
What?
Stemming off of what you said about them possibly being different ages, um, if Ari is older, do you think it's more likely he would have scrapped a steam engine? And furthermore, what if they're not actually twins? What if they just have the same livery?
Oh yeah, I honestly, in my mind, I'm imagining that they are twins
'Cause
because like they were both
look at every
given
other
the
twin in the
same.
series. It's Bill and Ben, both B's. Jonathan Douglas, both D's. Um,
Yeah, I imagine they were just given the same industry, the
livery.
same job, and they were given the same livery, so they were like, yeah, okay, we're twins. Ha ha ha.
Yeah,
Sort of thing.
and then everybody just took him seriously.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you two are related? No, hold on. Yeah, you two are brothers? That's awesome. I'll be sure to tell everybody else about that, so you'll
But yeah,
never stop growing."
that's a very interesting concept. Yeah, I
Because
imagine
if Harry was
Ellie,
older,
as you said.
if Harry is older, if he would have scrapped his steam engine beforehand, that would explain, well, like you said, his potential to be more desensitized to their job
Yeah,
versus Bert, who is possibly a lot more ready to do it than Harry, who might have been around for 10 or so years before that. Whatever.
yeah, desensitized is definitely a good word for that. It's like Ellie's accepted this as just what life is, and he has no problem with it. He's just used to it. Whereas Bert would take issue with it. Bert would be traumatized, and he would want to act. He would feel compelled to try and, I don't want to say fight back because he's still been, I've been using the word
Yeah.
indoctrinated,
Um,
but he at least would want to try and bridge the gap maybe and try and
right.
satisfy the guilt that's been building up in his mind maybe.
Maybe. I just did some quick research on the O8s just to
Oh yeah.
bring some basis into this. Um, they were built between 1952 and 1962. So if Aries been around since the early 50s, he would have been around for the mud and blood of, killing steam engines.
That's
And
yeah. That's like the
obviously
perfect
Bert
amount
would
of
have
time.
too. Yeah, obviously Bert would have too, but like we could just handwave that and say he worked in a yard before Sodor. And
Yeah,
you
like
wouldn't have seen it.
let's say A was one of the first ones back in like 52, 53, and then Bert was one of the last ones, like 61, 62.
Right.
So then, like, let's say A was working or worked at some, steelworks, some scrapyard, some smelters, off somewhere in Britain, and then right before that maybe that closed down, Bert was brought over, and so then Arry and Bert are sold together to Sodor, where Bert has no experience with scrapping engines, and all he
Right.
has is just what he's heard from all the other diesels in the yard and the books and
Yeah.
whatnot,
Maybe
and like his
a few smaller things like parts and pieces, cans, Nothing
yeah,
major. No major deconstruction had.
for sure, yeah, and then Arry's Arry's been on the
Seamless.
job for from 1952 to 1962 in Britain at the smelters. He's had a lot
Right,
of
which,
experience with scrapping steam engines.
yeah, he's seen the beginning. He was there for the start, and now we're in the mud and blood of it. Um, so then them going to Sodor, it would make a lot more sense for Bert to be more gun ho about scrapping steam engines because he's never heard it and he hears all these stories.
Yeah,
And suddenly, there's a lot more steam engines over here.
yeah, and he immediately acts as an antagonist to the steam engines because he's like, shouldn't you guys be scrapped? What are you doing out and about? Where are all the diesels? And they're
Right.
obviously incredibly
And it's like
offended by
Bulko
this.
and Bear and like the nicest engines ever.
Yeah, and then Bert's over here just like, can I
Can I
kill you
kill one,
guys?
please?
And now
Big
he's just like,
begging.
oh yeah, they'll all be dead soon. Just like brushing it off because that's just what he's used
He's
to.
just used to, yeah.
That's just what life
10
is
years
for
later.
him.
10 years later. There's still more steam engines.
and
There's more.
then and like Bert's like so excited, and then maybe the first steam engine comes in, and they
From the
have
mainland.
they have a nice conversation because Bert's chatty and outgoing, I'd imagine. And then they start talking, and Bert's like, "Wait, you're like a real human. You're a real person, not a human being.
Oh,
You're a
you're a
real,
real personality? What?
yeah, that,
Kidding me? You're not just like a faceless. You're just not like a number on a board, like the rest of
yeah.
us.
You're not the past." And so then that steam engine is promptly killed, primarily by Arry, but obviously with a lot of assistance from Bert. And like, imagine a moment where Bert and the engine make eye contact as the engine's being lowered into
The smelter's pit.
the smelter's pit, whatever. It would just be so powerful,
Right.
and Arry's just over
Bert's
there
look
like,
on his
"Yep,
face
this
would be
is this is
horrified.
daily business," and Bert's like horrified. What like
And Aries just like straight face, neutral. Eh.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, time to do the next one. There seems to be a tanker over there ready for some cutting up. And Bert's just like frozen in trauma.
He was alive a second ago.
And and Aries
Or
off, moving on. And then Bert maybe
it's
just
already
stays
at
in
the
the shed
tanker.
for the rest of the day.
Do you think maybe if horrified Bert would like go out onto the line and like go collect some other scrap pieces or something, do you think the others might like antagonize him? Because assuming it's been like a year or something, or a few weeks at the very least, Bert's been like an antagonist to them on the regular. So if he goes out on his own and is like not antagonistic and he's still like PTSD horrified trauma victim
Yeah.
from what he saw, the others might like antagonize him.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if he were to just go out onto the line, start like he's just looking down, but he has to keep working, and he's just and then he looks up, and there's like, I don't know, Percy just doing his business, and he's pissed, and Percy starts like screaming at him or whatever. He's just like, or if this was like the hitter, you'd say like, I don't know, like
You
rotten
still
wheels or
in
something. He just,
yeah. Well,
he'd be Percy, and Bert would just be looking at him, and then Percy's like, okay, this is weird, and then leaves.
that's I like the way you took that, but like I didn't think of it that way. I thought it would be more like he was like schoolyard bullying him about like the big tough scrap diesel being so sad.
Oh,
But
yeah.
and like Bert getting all defensive about it because big tough scrap diesel. Um,
I would imagine it more as like Percy is expecting Bert to, be how he normally is, but he notices that something's wrong, so then he just leaves
uh,
before it gets w-
weird.
weird, I guess.
See, I thought you were implying that Percy would have known the other engine.
That would also be That's also
What
what
if
I was
that was one of
implying.
Percy's friends?
What if
Like
that
around the turntable and Percy takes the plunge?
Dude, that would oh my
That would be
god.
well, that would explain like their like I don't want to say rivalry, but like Percy seems to have some extra beef with Arry and Bert. Every time he sees them, he says something.
Percy's new whistle.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. He
Like,
just has some extra beef.
and so imagine that scene where Bert immediately after killing, I don't know, Ginty goes out,
Ginty
and
was
then
awesome.
Percy is just like, Percy was there to do his duty, do his, picking up scrap or whatever, dropping off some spare wheels,
He collects
and
Ginty.
and he just Percy knows obviously, and he's sad, and he's expecting Bert to being a prick, but Bert doesn't say
Being Bert,
anything, and so then Percy says like, "That was my friend though," or something like that, and then Bert's like, "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry," and then Percy's like, "No, you don't understand," and he starts like yelling and screaming,
maybe
you
then
know.
Arry would come in to like defend Bert.
Yeah,
You know,
like Bert's like really apologetic and like down
he's like
about it, and then
taking
Ari
everything
comes out.
Percy's saying.
Yeah, and then Ari comes out and is like, "No, no, I will not stand for this. You get out of here, you lousy, steamy." And
Right? He
he
would come out like
starts.
fast, and Percy's a wimp, so he would run away.
Yeah,
Um,
and Bert would almost be unhappy about how that worked out. Well, obviously, but like he would have probably wanted to try and have some kind of like
right.
meaningful conversation with Percy after that, but Ari
And
just scared
maybe
him off,
Arry would tell
defending
him
his
like,
little
yeah,
brother.
maybe Arry would tell him like, yeah, you're not gonna change his mind about what you've done because he's done this 100 times, so he should be used to this kind of conversation.
Right.
Um, you'd be like, yeah, you're not gonna change their mind. It's a shame. It's just your job, but that's that's how it is with these steam
That's just,
engines.
yeah, that's just how it is. And
I
obviously,
think that would bring the two closer together because like I could see them being like coworkers from this point, but then I feel like moments like that would like bring the two like closer together and be them far more accepting of the term like twins.
and that's just
You
such
know?
a dark way to look at it because that's the most realistic outcome where Aaron and Bert keep on scrapping engines and they deal with it
Take it.
mentally, they take it and become closer with each other as a result of it.
Maybe
And
that's why we rarely ever see them separate from each other. Maybe that's why they don't have an episode separate from each other. It's because they're so like indulged into this grief, depressive sort of state. And if they don't put up this like tough school bully, frightening diesel type front, that like they they will get beatings and like steam engines will like gang up on them if they were like people. They'd like beat them up in a back alley or something for like
what
killing
would
their
the
friends, even though
steam
it was just their
engine
order.
equivalent of that be? What would the locomotive equivalent of that be? But yeah,
I think that would just be like the fight and calling all engines. I think that would be like
actually,
like
that's
bumping them
fair.
around into buffers off the rails.
But
You
yeah,
know,
it's almost like there's two paths for Bert here. There's the inevitable path almost, where he joins his brother and he becomes desensitized and it's just the cycle repeats, or he tries to act and maybe he gains some sort of favor with the steam engines, or he at least has a meaningful conversation, and then they're just the cycle still repeats, but at least has some kind of he has something he can
open
cling
humanity.
on to make
Yeah,
himself feel better. And then the day will come where he has to maybe scrap Percy or something like that.
yeah,
And if say Percy was the engine that he became close with, and I can't even imagine how that would feel for either of them. I can't imagine how that conversation would go.
right. Having to kill your friend just because it's your job, or heck, one day, um, if we go the alternate route and they become what they become, or he becomes what Aerie is one day, because Aerie's a lot older than Bert, remember?
Yeah.
So come like the 70s or 80s, it might be Aerie's
Oh
time,
no.
and he might end up forcefully having to kill his brother and replace him with like a slightly more modern Diesel.
Oh my god. Bert is like the most tragic character in this entire show.
Just you just turn Bert
Jesus
from a dumb jock
Christ.
to this.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and
So
then
yeah.
and then he grows closer with his new coworker, right? And
And
they
then his new
become
coworker has to
friendly
scrap
just to
him.
kill him.
And it keeps
It's
going
the
over.
cycle of the
Oh,
scrap engine.
oh
The cycle
wow.
of the scrap engine. That's all it is.
That's the worst job you could possibly have.
Constantly
Oh
having to take over
wow.
life. And then eventually your life, your friend's life, your
Percy thought he
coworker's life.
was put upon. There's no competition here. Wow.
And the tough schoolyard bully thing is all a facade for this depression, this. Because if they didn't, they'd be ganged up on. And that's why we
And
don't see them without each other. And that's why it's always Arry and Bert, not Bert or Arry.
and there you have it, folks.
Is it time already?
It's it's time already. that
Crap.
was that.
That was such a
Wow.
twist. I was not
That
expecting us to get that much. We started
that
out being like,
went.
Arry and Bert,
Yeah,
and
there
now we're
was
like,
so much to
Arry and
unpack
Bert.
there.
That I feel nuanced and oh, as Matt says quite often, I want to write a story about those two now.
Yeah, and that
Huh.
exactly.
Gosh.
Somebody needs to go write that, please.
Okay.
Somebody out there, write
Open
that
your
for
Google
us.
Doc
That would
right
be
now.
awesome. Oh
Open your Google
wow.
Doc right away.
Yeah. Wait. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
that is. I'm genuinely shaken.
yeah, that was so
Oh,
meaningful. I don't.
mind you, this is all twisted canon.
Oh, of course. This is just our. This is what we how we
Yeah,
think of these characters. This
and
is the result of a conversation that you just listened to.
yeah, you were there. You were there. You know what happened.
Yeah. Hi.
But clearly, if you take canon at face value and like straight up, they are just sort of dumb jocks. But that's lame. This is cool.
That's
So
so
don't take it
lame.
that way. Take it our way or your way. Please take it your way. We want to know what you think of those two.
Yeah. What do you
Turn the
think of
dumb
Arry and
jocks
Bert?
into the most entertaining story you've ever written.
Let us know in the comments below, or in a
Please
YouTube
do.
video or something. I would at me
I would love
if
if
any
somebody
of
made a
you
YouTube video as like a rebuttal to this. That would be awesome.
if any of you ever make a YouTube video inspired by this video in any way, DM me on
Let us
Twitter
know,
instantly. That would be so cool. I would love that.
please. That'd
Oh,
be
that'd be
awesome.
awesome, man.
This is just like a rebuttal to anything. Wow.
Well,
Arry
thank
and
you.
Bert. Arry and
Alright,
Bert.
thank you for the hot cocoa. It's pretty hot in the smelters already, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm starting to sweat, honestly.
yeah, I mean,
Oh, shh, shh,
uh,
shh.
at least
You
this
hear
time I didn't
something?
have to make the cocoa, you know?
Hey, I didn't know Joe had a recipe in the brake van, okay? I'm shocked Henry didn't destroy that thing. We don't talk about that.
Like, I just wish you got marshmallows. That's all I wanted. Whatever. That's
Well,
besides the point. The fat controller's gonna be here soon, and Stephanie was
Caroline
about
was
to get
broken,
scrapped. He's gonna
okay?
yell at us. Ugh.
Wait,
Why did we have to
Stephanie.
record this podcast
Where,
on
where,
today?
where's Stephanie? Do
What
you
do you
remember
mean?
where we left him? Did we leave?
Well,
Where did we leave Stephanie? Where did we park him?
he was just outside the doors that go up and down or whatever. We just went inside to call for help, but we found this hot cocoa.
I'm gonna go
Seemed really
check. Hold
nice.
on.
Okay.
Uh, Jaden, you might want to come out here. I think we have an issue.
What? Oh.
We're missing a terrier.
Uh.
Well,
But Ugh.
Well, folks, we kind of have to go find
Oh,
an engine before
Stepney.
scrap diesels get to it. Uh, Toodle peep.
Yeah, toodle fever, everyone. I'm sorry. Yo, where's Stepney?